with the help of the Almighty, again, we have to, the right words is we plead for, because it's these sessions are so short, and we were trying to accomplish so much. But just as to point out, Jews have been living together before Zionism. As all, I want to thank, Noah and everybody has been so, eloquently mentioned. This is so clear. It's just this a political movement that has destroyed everything, and that is really presenting itself to the world as a proper entity, and therefore it's like that is their shield. Now, in fact, if I mentioned the word shield, and they mentioned Hanukkah, as you meant, it is our holiday Hanukkah coming up in 2 days, and the Zionists, as you know, have an Olympic team they call the Maccabees. And they show all the signs, the Maccabee with a sword, and that's one of their signs, one of their, besides raising the Israeli flag, they have the Maccabees with a shield, with a sword. Now, just to show how the falsification is here, the Maccabees were when the Greeks put out a decree on the Jews that they can't keep the Sabbath, that's from the Ten Commandments, that and other to circumcision and whatever, the other laws. Now, they at the punishable by death. Now, with the Maccabees were five children of the high priest. They were old men, basically, most probably. They came up and they fought against an army that was hundreds of thousands, and they were only successful because it was God behind this issue. It was a miracle. So the Zionists always are misconstruing, and they went up to stand against the attempt to obliterate Judaism that was supported by people like the Zionists that were non-religious, who were trying to change the religion from within, to drop the religion. So ironically, the Zionists are the same, like they called the Misyabnim. Yavan is the Greeks. They were the ones, the Jews who were trying to obliterate the Torah, were working with, and it was these 5 old men who fought against them, and it wasn't because the power of guns and force that they were able to be victorious. It was because God backed them. Saying that, what I'm trying to say is they're using the Maccabees as a false narrative of what Judaism is. Judaism is to serve God, and that we're forbidden to kill. And it wasn't because the power of these world powers that we were able to be victorious. It was because God saved us. In the case of Zionism, I'm saying, even though the world powers and Sanya and whatever other people said different than no, they said, they mentioned, like like the world powers, we pick up our hands and defeat almost from them, because we can't do anything. But if you look at South Africa, I was just before mentioned, South Africa, we believe it's through God that everything happens. But in the earth, something you have to, the actions that were taken was the grassroots that just didn't let the governments at peace. They badgered the politicians till they had no choice. But even though the United Nations for tens of years were giving credence and respect to South Africa's apartheid government, and Nelson Mandela was in prison for 27 years, it was the grassroots that finally made their politicians stop supporting the apartheid, and it was totally wiped out. Today, if you will try to make an apartheid state, they will be laughed out of the United Nations. As it was mentioned before, just before so eloquently, Israel is 20 times, 1,000 times worse than that, and it has to be totally removed, because it should be a free Palestine. Now, this will happen, because God says, while you're rebelling against me, it will not be successful, and so is in the Torah. So we are urging everybody, and I was Noah mentioned that, to go back to the old Judaism. Judaism is this it's one thing only, that we made a covenant with God on Mount Sinai to be subservient, to recognize He created the world, and He is the ruler of the world, and keeping the Sabbath. 6 days He created the world, 7th He rested. That is what that is. That is what Judaism is, and Judaism states that we're not allowed to kill or steal, that we are to show a gratitude for people who did to us kindness, for the Arabs and Muslim people who took us in, not to vilify them, and because of your convenience that you're going to, with a stroke of the pen, say that all the Muslims hate the Jews. That's the opposite of gratitude that we have to show for the Muslim countries that took us in by the Crusades and Inquisition. So the Zionists, their enterprise, they're making the state is totally contradictory to Jews not to have a state, and we can, and at the grassroots we will stand up, the grassroots, and constantly insist that our politicians recognize that they're supporting something illegitimate, because it's not a legitimate reason to occupy land. The reason they're saying is because it's theirs, it's not theirs, and they're killing and stealing to do it. We can, if as a grassroots people around the world, stand up and put final pressure on the governments that you mentioned, like the General Assembly should ultimately put them out. Why? Because at the end of the day, there's a God behind this world, and it could stop today. It could end today. But again, the grassroots should not lose their hope and their ambition to stop it, because even though it may look hopeless, just like there was a Greek Empire, Roman Empire, there was other empires that were so powerful, but overnight these things ended. We will continue to do and to disclose the contradiction between Judaism, that means subservience to God, upholding the Torah, Maccabees, serving God, that's what it was, and not what the Zionists portray it, an occupation with a sword. We will reveal to the world that what they're supporting with, and like you say, documenting. The Sandra said, they're documenting all these, every single act of what they're doing, that the world will eventually have the power over the powers that are in place now. In other words, the grassroots in Russia, the grassroots in the United States, around the world, besides the good governments, all these good governments that are standing up to the plate, we will be successful. Why? Again, I hope I'm speaking to believers, because there's a God behind us. He will bring an end to this injustice, but we should not be intimidated. We have to speak up and do. We just was now at the demonstration. It was one of the rabbis, as his name is Rabbi Moshe Erron. He's as you see, the Zionist police simply arrested him, as the tens of thousands of others. He's in prison years. He has a large family. We've been demonstrating because why? Because he's standing up against Zionism. He has not committed one single, he's not a violent man, no guns, he's in prison. We want the world to stand up and bring, I'm asking you to bring also to publish constantly actions, what they're doing to the Jews. So the world should wake up and say, wait, if that's just the Palestinians, they're terrorists, why are they doing it to the Jews? Bring out these stories. Bring out the stories with put for money. Collect money, put it into advertisements in newspapers that they should see the crimes that they're doing to the Palestinians. The newspapers don't print it because they're afraid to print it. But if you do it as an advertisement, they have to sometimes put it in. You can fight them. We fought the New York Times, and they eventually had to put in some of our messages. They have to. You get it, the message out that the grassroots, that the people of the world will understand they're being duped, and they're supporting a mass murder, a genocide in Palestine, and then the world together will eventually, with God's help, bring a change in the United Nations, and maybe we'll have, InshaAllah, free Palestine.